Have you ever wondered why some people stay calm and unshaken when everything around them is falling apart? Why do a few face storms without flinching while most crumble at the slightest pressure? What if the secret to true strength isn't loud victories or flashy displays, but quiet mastery over your own emotions? In this video, you'll discover how the Stoics teach us to stay steady, rise above chaos, and find lasting peace, even when the world feels like it's collapsing. If you're ready to take control of your mind and live with unshakable calm, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more powerful insights that can transform your life. Number 1, master your emotions to stay unshaken amid chaos. Have you ever stood in a room full of noise? Not the sound of traffic or conversations, but emotional noise? The kind where your thoughts won't stop spiraling, where your breath is shallow, where your chest tightens, not because of what was said, but because of what wasn't, where disappointment mixes with anger and unspoken fear simmers under your skin, where even in silence you can feel the tension rising like a storm cloud about to break. That kind of noise isn't out there. It's inside you. And if you're not careful, if you haven't trained your mind, it doesn't just affect how you feel. It becomes who you are. In those moments, you don't just hear chaos. You become chaos, but now step outside yourself. Watch someone else go through the same storm. The betrayal, the pressure, the collapse. But they're different. Not because life is easier for them, not because they don't feel the sting, but because they've cultivated something most people never even attempt: emotional sovereignty. They stand there calm, not indifferent, but undisturbed. Their silence isn't empty, it's fortified. Their stillness isn't inaction, it's control. They are not reactive, they are responsive. They are not numb, they are composed. They are not escaping the storm, they are unmoved by it. This is what the Stoics called self-mastery. This is the difference between being ruled by what you feel and ruling over what you feel. It's not about pretending not to care. It's not about suppressing what hurts. It's about refusing to hand over the steering wheel of your life to an untrained emotion. The Stoic doesn't run from emotion. They relate to it wisely, not recklessly. And that's where Stoic philosophy begins. Not in cold attachment, but in liberation. Liberation from the emotional puppetry that controls most people. Marcus Aurelius said it best. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. In other words, the world may strike, but how deep that strike goes, how long it lingers, and what it turns you into, that's still yours to decide. It's not just a poetic thought, it's a revolution of mindset. Because life will not hold back. People will test you. Those you trust will let you down. Opportunities will dry up. Plans will unravel. Your health may falter. And when all that comes crashing down, the only thing that can't afford to collapse is you. If you haven't trained for the chaos, it will consume you. If you haven't built your center, you will be pulled in every direction. The Stoic doesn't train to avoid hardship. They train to become stronger than it. And they begin with one question. How do I build a mind that stays still when everything else shakes? You build it through training, quietly, repeatedly, intentionally, not just in the dramatic moments, but in the invisible ones, because that's where your true habits are forged. The traffic jam that tests your patience, the partner who snaps at you when you're exhausted, the colleague who takes credit for your idea, the cashier who moves too slow. These moments feel small, but they are sacred. They are resistance training for your character. And then there are the deeper ones, the breakup, the betrayal, the furensure, the loss, the guilt, the gnawing uncertainty of not knowing what comes next. These are harder, but they're also opportunities to either break apart or break through. Every insult you don't respond to, every delay you meet with breath instead of fury, every urge to retaliate that you quietly let pass, Each is a brick in the foundation of inner strength. These are the victories that make you someone the storm cannot move. The reward isn't applause, it's peace. And that peace is earned, not granted. You're not suppressing, you're not pretending, you're transcending. This is the kind of power most people never develop because it can't be shown off. It doesn't make headlines. It doesn't trend. You don't get a trophy for staying calm when you could have exploded. You don't go viral for choosing patience, but you do get something else, something far more valuable. You get to live with yourself in peace. You get to look in the mirror and see someone you respect. And here's the deeper truth. Most people don't do this work because it feels invisible. But invisible does not mean unimportant. It means foundational. Your ability to regulate your internal world is the greatest predictor of the quality of your external one. Let's not forget the Stoics felt deeply, but they practiced discipline with those feelings. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." He understood that the stories we tell ourselves about what this means, about how unfair that was, about what might happen next, create more suffering than the event itself. And even when emotions are justified, Stoicism teaches that they still need boundaries. Anger might be natural, but left unchecked, it burns indiscriminately. Fear may be rational, but indulged too long, it paralyzes. Sadness may be human, but held too tightly, it drowns you. The Stoic holds emotion like a warrior holds a weapon, carefully, respectfully, and never without awareness. That's why emotional mastery is never about denial. It's about direction. Emotions are messengers. They tell you something's off, but they're not kings. They don't get to rule you. Now let's be honest, you won't always get it right. You'll yell, you'll shut down, you'll say things you regret, and that's okay. That's part of the practice. Even Marcus Aurelius in Meditations often wrote reminders to himself to not be carried away by anger or not let the mind become infected by pain. The emperor of the Roman Empire was still reminding himself to master his emotions. Why should you expect yourself to be perfect? You're not failing Stoicism by feeling emotion. You're training in it by learning from every moment you didn't handle well. Every slip-up is datum. Every mistake is feedback. The Stoic doesn't chase flawless performance. They chase clarity and the quiet self-respect that grows from striving honestly. So think of your mind like a muscle. The more resistance it faces, the more it has the opportunity to grow. The difference is in how you meet that resistance, not with blame, not with collapse, but with practice. The next time you feel the heat rise in your chest, the tension in your throat, the rush of adrenaline screaming for a reaction, pause. That pause is everything. That pause is the space where your new self is being forged, where the old reflex dies and the new discipline begins. It is the birthplace of inner strength. And when you live from that space often enough, things start to shift. People talk, but you don't flinch. Things fall apart, but you don't spiral. The world disappoints you, but you stay aligned. Because you've stopped handing your peace to anything or anyone outside your control. This is what it means to become Stoic. Not untouchable, but unstoppable. Not invincible, but unbreakable. Not cold, but calmly in command. To be tested and stay intact. To be provoked and stay still. To be betrayed and stay noble. Not because you don't feel, but because you've trained yourself to feel without being led. So don't run from emotion. Don't drown in it either. Face it, feel it, and choose every single time to become stronger than the storm. Because the goal isn't to live without chaos. It's to become the kind of person chaos can't touch. And that is what it truly means to master your emotions. That is what it means to live as a Stoic in the arena of real life where it matters most. Number 2, when judged by others, let silence protect you. Have you ever been judged not for who you are, but for who someone else decided you were? It happens quietly, sometimes politely, sometimes cruelly. a sideways glance, a passive-aggressive comment, a social media post that doesn't name you but cuts close enough to bleed. And in that moment, something burns within you. The urge to correct, to defend, to clear the record before the lie spreads like fire. That urge is human, but often it's not helpful. Because the more you try to justify your truth to someone committed to misunderstanding it, the more you lose the very peace you're trying to protect. As the plot thickened in the lives of great philosophers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, they too faced betrayal, ridicule, and misjudgment. But instead of chasing vindication, they sought alignment. Epictetus, born into slavery, stripped of social status, was dismissed by many as unworthy of philosophical thought. Yet he didn't retaliate. He refined He studied. He said, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. And that wasn't resignation. That was power. He understood that peace isn't earned through applause. It's earned through discipline. But then, the temptation arises. You hear the lie, the rumor, the subtle distortion of your name, and you want to speak up, to show them who you really are. But here's the trap. In trying to convince them, you risk losing you. And very soon after, you realize that even if they believe you, their opinion still holds power over your emotional state. The Stoic sees this and steps back, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Not every perception deserves a rebuttal. Not every judgment warrants an audience. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, and one of history's most powerful men, wrote in his private journal, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." When he was misrepresented, when he was attacked politically, he didn't make speeches defending his character. He lived in a way that made the accusations collapse under their own weight. His life was his argument, his virtue, his shield. What's more, this philosophy wasn't about being passive. It was about being principled. Silence isn't weakness. It's often restraint in its most powerful form. To put it differently, silence is not what you do when you don't know what to say. It's what you choose when what you could say would cost you more than it's worth. It's a strategy. It's sovereignty. It's choosing peace over performance. Consider the modern example of Malala Yousafzai. Shot in the head by extremists who feared the power of her voice, she survived, rose, and became the youngest Nobel laureate in history. She didn't shout back. She didn't hate. She simply kept walking her path. Her silence wasn't the absence of strength. It was the proof of it. She didn't explain herself to those who tried to break her. She let her work do the talking. Indeed, the intelligent person knows the cost of over-explaining. Every moment spent proving yourself to the wrong audience is a moment stolen from your mission. That's what the Stoic understands. Your time, your energy, your peace, these are currencies. Spend them wisely. Not everyone is worth the cost of clarity. Furthermore, not every person wants to see the truth. Some prefer their illusion, because if they accepted your growth, your strength, your peace, it would force them to confront their own lack of it. There are people who cling to an outdated version of you because your evolution threatens their comfort. And for those people, no explanation will ever be enough. So the Stoic doesn't try, they simply keep rising. And in that rise, something beautiful happens. Results begin to speak where rebuttals used to. Silence becomes a testimony. Composure becomes a message. You don't have to yell your way into respect. You walk into it, 1 foot in discipline, 1 foot in integrity. That's what separates the mature from the reactive. But that doesn't mean you never feel the sting. Stoics aren't emotionless. They're emotionally disciplined. When someone ridicules you, the impulse to defend is real. The anger, the sadness, the injustice, it's all there. But Stoicism teaches us that emotions are waves. You don't stop the ocean. You learn to surf. You ride them without drowning in them. You let them move through you without taking your peace with them. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." In the same way, it is not the one who is judged who is weak. It is the one who needs approval to feel whole. The Stoic reclaims their wealth by withdrawing from that craving. They find abundance in inner validation. And they understand this too. Every time you defend yourself against nonsense, you dignify it. You give it room in your mind. And that is far too valuable a place to lease out to fools. Now let's speak to your modern reality. You don't live in ancient Rome or walk through marble forums. You live in a digital world where judgments come fast, public, and often anonymous. A world of comment sections, screenshots, and viral shaming. But even here, the same law applies. Not everything that touches you deserves a response. Some things just deserve to be ignored. Think of Rowling. At the height of her success, despite building one of the most beloved literary universes in modern history, she was constantly judged, attacked, praised, re-attacked. But she kept writing. She continued building. She let her contribution speak louder than the noise around her. She may be divisive, but her impact remains undeniable because it was built on creation, not argument. So what will yours be built on? You must decide. Do you want to be remembered for your reactions or for your results? For your rebuttals or for your resilience? You don't need to enter every courtroom of public opinion. You don't need to win every debate. You just need to live in a way that proves the gossip wrong. And lastly, remember this. True power is quiet. True alignment is still. It does not shout to be heard. It does not shake when criticized. It walks. It builds. It is. The Stoic mind does not fear being misjudged. It fears betraying itself. Because the ultimate betrayal isn't what they say about you. It's when you abandon your own path just to prove them wrong. So walk on, calm, centered, focused. And when the world shouts its judgments at you, let silence be your sanctuary. Because in the end, the most powerful statement you can ever make is not made with words. It's made with the life you choose to live. Number 3, set boundaries without apology, even with those you love. What do you do when the people crossing your boundaries are the ones closest to you? Not enemies, not strangers, but friends, family. People who say they love you, yet drain you, guilt you, and take without limit. Most people stay silent. They tolerate, they excuse. They whisper to themselves, they didn't mean it. But every time you silence your needs, you teach the world that your peace is negotiable, that your soul is available for discount, and that your self-worth is up for debate. The Stoics knew something essential, something often forgotten in the noise of modern relationships. Love without limits becomes exploitation. Kindness without strength becomes weakness. And tolerance without clarity becomes self-betrayal. You see, the world will always push as far as you let it. People don't always intend harm, but they will take advantage of your silence if you give them the chance. That's why the Stoic draws the line, not out of anger, but out of alignment. Not out of bitterness, but out of deep self-respect. But here's where most people fall apart. We confuse boundaries with rejection. We confuse strength with cruelty. We believe that to say no is to stop loving someone. But that couldn't be further from the truth. A boundary is not a wall to shut people out. It is a gate to preserve what matters most inside. You don't draw the line to punish others. You draw it to protect your energy, your dignity, and your inner stillness. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." Or think about that. What he's saying is this: even relationships, yes, even with family, are not worth the price of your soul. And when you keep sacrificing your values in the name of harmony, you're not preserving love. You're preserving dysfunction. Let's go deeper. What kind of love demands that you abandon your truth to keep it alive? What kind of bond asks you to shrink so the other person can feel big? That's not love. That's control. That's fear disguised as loyalty. And yet most people allow it. because they were conditioned to believe that being agreeable is the same thing as being good. But here's the Stoic truth. Goodness without boundaries is martyrdom. And you weren't born to be anyone's martyr. Seneca put it clearly, associate with people who are likely to improve you. Dari, not people who manipulate you, not people who weaponize guilt, not people who see your silence as a green light to trespass. And no, this doesn't mean you cut off everyone who makes a mistake, but it does mean you clarify the rules of engagement. Calmly, firmly, repeatedly, you teach people how to treat you not through lectures, but through limits. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. People will push back. Some will call you selfish. Others will say you've changed. But as Epictetus warned, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Meaning the moment someone resents your boundary is the moment they reveal the truth. They preferred you when you were easier to manipulate, when you were quieter, when you didn't stand up for yourself. This will blow your mind, but sometimes the person you most need to set a boundary with is the one who swears they love you the most. Not because they're a villain, but because you've trained them to expect unlimited access to you. You've trained them to believe your time, your kindness, your energy will always be available, no matter what it costs you. And you can't blame someone for crossing a line you never made visible. But once you do draw it, once you stand firm without shouting, without anger, everything changes. You see, boundaries aren't about exile. They're about evolution. The people who genuinely care will adjust. They'll ask questions. They'll grow. The people who only valued what you gave them will disappear. Either way, you win. Because you've stopped choosing comfort over clarity. You've stopped choosing obligation over authenticity. You've stopped performing peace and started protecting it. Let's bring this home with something real. Imagine a sibling who constantly puts you down. A friend who only reaches out when they need something. A partner who uses guilt as currency. Most people suffer quietly under these dynamics for years, until they finally break. But the Stoic doesn't wait for collapse. The Stoic doesn't wait until they're emotionally bankrupt. They intervene early, not with fury, but with firmness, not with cruelty, but with conviction. And if your voice shakes, speak anyway. If your hands tremble, draw the line anyway. Because every time you do, you're not just protecting yourself. You're reintroducing yourself. You're showing the world that your values are no longer optional, that your peace is no longer up for grabs, that your emotional safety is a requirement, not a luxury. Consider this. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, faced betrayal not from strangers, but from his own family. Even his son, Commodus, was a living contradiction of everything Stoicism stood for. Indulgent, egotistical, impulsive, and yet Marcus didn't abandon his principles to win his son's approval. He didn't lower his standards just to keep the peace. He stood firm, rooted in what he knew was right. Because a Stoic doesn't bend their values to accommodate dysfunction. They remain still, even when their heart aches. But perhaps the most important truth is this. Setting boundaries is love, not the performative kind. The real kind, the kind that honors both you and the relationship. Because a relationship without boundaries isn't a connection, it's a cage. And freedom begins the moment you say, this is where I end and someone else begins. But every person afraid of conflict, let this be your turning point. You don't need to scream. You don't need to fight. You don't even need to explain yourself in great detail. Your life doesn't need to be understood by everyone, only respected. And if someone refuses to do that, you already have your answer. So let's end with brutal honesty. You will lose people, but you will find yourself. You will lose the illusion of closeness, but gain the reality of self-respect. And once you taste that peace, once you realize how much energy you've wasted trying to keep others happy while keeping yourself small, you'll never go back. Don't wait until burnout becomes your only option. Don't wait until bitterness replaces love. Set the boundary, speak the truth. Be firm even if your voice shakes, because your peace is sacred. Your time is sacred. Your soul is sacred. And any love that demands you sacrifice those things was never love to begin with. Protect it without apology, and don't look back. The world won't teach you how to protect your peace. It will teach you how to please, how to perform, how to endure, but never how to say enough. And that part is up to you. And if you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just about Stoic quotes or ancient names. It's about your life, your voice, your values. It's about learning to stand firm when it would be easier to stay silent, to walk away when it would be easier to explain, to choose strength, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that stands tall in stillness. So remember this: you don't need the world to approve your boundaries. You don't need everyone to understand your discipline. You don't need permission to protect your energy. The Stoics taught us that freedom doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from controlling yourself. And once you truly master that, no betrayal, no judgment, no loss will ever break you. If this resonated with you and you're ready to live with more clarity, more strength, and more peace, subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who's tired of being walked over. And above all, walk forward with purpose. Because the Stoic life isn't passive, it's powerful. It's not about escaping the world. It's about mastering yourself within it. And that journey, it begins now.